My name is Valentina Castillo, and I still remember the exact moment when my heart shattered behind a polite smile. It happened at my son's engagement dinner, a place filled with glittering chandeliers, crystal glasses, and a kind of laughter that felt expensive. I had spent the entire afternoon choosing my dress, a soft blue one I bought with the last of my savings. I ironed it carefully, not because I wanted to impress anyone, but because I wanted my son to look at me and feel proud just once more. If you're watching this video, please like and subscribe to the channel, and tell me in the comments where you're listening to my story of revenge from. I want to know how far it has reached. That night, I sat quietly at the long table, surrounded by Isabella's elegant family, the kind of people who spoke about vacations in Italy and investments in real estate as casually as others talk about the weather. I tried to join their conversations, smiling when appropriate, nodding when they mentioned names I didn't know. I was out of place, and I felt it with every breath. When someone asked about Matteo's childhood, I saw a chance to bring warmth to the table. I spoke softly, telling a simple story how, years ago, I used to bake him birthday cakes from scratch because we couldn't afford the fancy ones. How he would close his eyes, make a wish, and blow out the candles with a joy that lit up our little kitchen. For a moment, I thought the memory might soften the air around us. But instead, silence fell like a heavy curtain. Isabella's mother pressed her napkin delicately to her lips, hiding an awkward smile. Isabella looked down at her wine, and Matteo, my son, stared at his plate as if it held the secret to another universe. Then he said it. "Mom, please, it's not necessary to tell those stories here." The words cut through the air like glass. But when he added the next ones, my world stopped spinning. "You're ridiculous, Mom." I didn't move. I didn't cry. I just smiled, the kind of smile mothers wear when they're bleeding inside, but refuse to let the wound show. Around us, the orchestra played softly, waiters served wine, and everyone pretended nothing had happened. But inside, a silence louder than thunder echoed in my chest. I looked at my son, the boy I had raised alone, the child I once carried through sleepless nights and long days of work. I searched his face for the warmth that used to live there, but all I saw was embarrassment, shame, distance. In that instant, something inside me cracked. Not completely, but enough for the light to start leaking out. I sipped my water, pretending not to tremble, and told myself to endure the night. I didn't know it yet, but those 4 words, "You're ridiculous, Mom," would be the spark that burned down everything I had built in silence. It wasn't the insult that destroyed me. It was the realization that my son, the center of my universe, no longer saw me as a person worth respecting. And that night, beneath the soft glow of chandeliers, I began to lose him, but I also began, quietly, to find myself. 2 weeks passed in silence after that dinner. Matteo didn't call, didn't visit, and I didn't dare reach out. Pride? Maybe. But it was more than that. I was afraid that if I heard his voice again, the pain would reopen like a fresh wound. My house felt heavier, emptier. The walls seemed to echo with ghosts of laughter that no longer belonged to us. Then, one afternoon, the phone rang. The screen showed an unfamiliar number. I hesitated before answering. "Mrs. Valentina Castillo?" A male voice asked, calm and professional. "Yes, this is she," I replied. "This is Robert Mendez, the manager of the National Bank downtown. We need to speak with you regarding an important matter. Could you come in tomorrow morning at 10? My heart skipped a beat. The bank? I hadn't applied for any loan, hadn't missed a single payment in my life. For nearly 40 years, I had lived by the rule of paying what I owed, never borrowing more than I could return. What is this about? I asked, my voice trembling slightly. It concerns a loan application, he said. We prefer to discuss it in person. After he hung up, I stood in the middle of my small living room, staring at the phone as if it had just delivered a curse. I didn't sleep that night. I turned and turned in bed, watching the ceiling blur in the dim light from the street lamp. Alone. The word rolled through my mind like thunder. By 9 the next morning, I was dressed in my best suit, the same one I wore for company meetings when I still worked full-time at the law firm. I tied my hair neatly in a bun and looked at myself in the mirror. The reflection that looked back at me was calm, composed, but my eyes betrayed the storm inside. The bank's building was all glass and steel, tall and cold. I walked through its polished doors with trembling hands, pretending to be confident. A young receptionist greeted me with a polite smile and led me to an office on the second floor. Mr. Mendez, a man in his 40s with a crisp suit and tired eyes, stood up as I entered. Mrs. Castillo, thank you for coming. He gestured for me to sit. I'll be brief. 3 days ago, we received a loan request for $150,000. It lists you as a co-signer. They expensive. The words hit me like a slap. That's impossible, I whispered. Mr. Mendez opened a folder and placed a document before me. My name, my signature, perfectly copied. My breath caught. My son's name was right beneath it, Mateo Castillo, and in that moment, I understood my betrayal had only just begun. For a long moment, I couldn't speak. The air in that office felt thick, almost unbreathable. I stared at the document, at the elegant curves of my name written in someone else's hand. It was a flawless imitation, but not mine. My fingers trembled as I reached out to touch it. I didn't sign this, I whispered. My voice sounded distant, like it belonged to another woman. Mr. Mendez nodded solemnly. We know. That's why I called you. The moment our team compared the signature to your records, we noticed inconsistencies. You've had an account with us for 25 years, and your signature has never changed. This one, it's close, but not yours. My throat tightened. I forced the words out. Who submitted it? He sighed softly. Your son, Mateo Castillo. He applied for a loan to fund a business project. According to the paperwork, you were listed as co-owner of the account where the money would be deposited. For a second, everything went quiet. The ticking clock, the hum of the air conditioner, even the sounds of the city outside, all disappeared. I could only hear my heartbeat pounding in my ears. My son, my Mateo, the same boy I had raised with so much care, the one I had believed incapable of deceit. He had used my name, my history, without even asking. Was the loan approved? I finally asked. No, Mr. Mendez said gently. Your son's credit record is complicated. Several late payments, maxed out cards, other outstanding debts. On his own, he doesn't qualify. But your name, Mrs. Castillo, that's different. Your credit is impeccable. Stable job history. No missed payments. In short, your name is worth gold to the bank. I lowered my head, tears falling silently onto my lap. The words, "Your name is worth gold," struck something deep inside me. I had spent a lifetime protecting that name, paying bills on time, living modestly, building trust one quiet year at a time. And now, the child I sacrificed everything for had tried to use it as collateral. Mr. Mendez's voice softened. "You have two choices. You can report the forgery, which is a criminal offense, or you can sign the loan documents yourself, making it official. If you co-sign, the bank will approve the loan immediately." I looked at him through blurry eyes. "You're asking me to choose between my son and my dignity." He didn't answer. He didn't have to. When I left the bank that day, the city looked the same, people walking, cars passing, but to me, everything had changed. My heart carried a new kind of weight, one made of betrayal and disbelief. And deep inside, a quiet voice whispered, "It's time to decide who you are, Valentina." That night, I sat at my kitchen table, the loan papers spread before me like ghosts of my own making. The numbers blurred together, but one figure stayed sharp in my mind: $150,000. It was more money than I had ever seen in my life, and yet the weight of it wasn't in dollars. It was in trust. Trust that had been broken by the very person I had lived for. The clock ticked softly on the wall. I made myself a cup of coffee, but it went cold, untouched. My hands rested on the folded letter I had found earlier that evening. A letter my mother had written to me before she passed away. I hadn't opened it in over 20 years, but somehow, that night, I needed her voice. "Valentina, my daughter," the letter began. "If you are reading this, it means I am no longer there to guide you. Promise me something. Do not let your kindness turn into weakness. To love is to give, yes, but it is also to know when to say no. A woman who cannot protect her dignity will teach others that she does not deserve respect." I pressed the paper to my chest, tears sliding down my cheeks. My mother had lived through her own storms: an abandoned marriage, endless work, and the loneliness of sacrifice. And now, decades later, her warning had come full circle to me. The next morning, Matteo called. His voice sounded casual, even cheerful, as if nothing had happened. "Mom, I heard the bank contacted you," he said. "It's just a small misunderstanding. I was going to tell you." My fingers tightened around the phone. "A misunderstanding? You forged my signature, Matteo." He sighed, impatient. "Mom, please don't make this dramatic. It's just paperwork. You know how slow banks are. I needed to move quickly." "Move quickly for what?" I asked, though part of me already knew. "For the business. Isabella and I have a great opportunity. Her parents are investors, but they need to see that I can bring something to the table. If I get this loan, everything will change. We'll be set for life. You just have to sign, Mom. It'll be under your name, and I'll handle the payments. I promise." Promises. That word used to mean something when it came from his mouth. I closed my eyes, hearing my mother's words again. "Do not let your kindness turn into weakness." When he finished speaking, I said quietly, "I'll think about it." I dooning by then. But deep down, I already knew my answer. It wouldn't be decided by fear or guilt or love. This time, it would be decided by dignity. Friday came sooner than I expected. I woke before dawn, unable to sleep, the decision echoing in my mind like a heartbeat. The sky outside my window was still dark. and the world felt suspended between night and day, just as I was suspended between being a mother and being a woman with her own worth. I dressed carefully that morning, as if I were going to a courtroom rather than a bank. My navy blue suit, pressed and simple, felt like armor. I tied my hair neatly and looked at my reflection one last time. There was fear in my eyes, yes, but also clarity. At 9 o'clock sharp, I entered the same glass building that had felt so cold earlier that week. Mr. Mendez greeted me with a polite nod and led me back to his office. "Mrs. Castillo," he said gently, "did you come to a decision?" I sat down across from him, hands folded in my lap. "Yes," I said. My voice was calm. "I did." Before I could continue, the door burst open. Mateo stepped in, wearing a tailored suit, his face pale and tight with tension. "Mom," he said quickly, "I knew you'd be here. Please, just listen to me before you do something you'll regret." Mr. Mendez stood, awkward but composed. "Would you like me to step out?" "No," I said. "Stay. It's time someone else heard the truth." Mateo looked at me with eyes full of desperation. "Mom, I didn't mean to hurt you. I just needed your help. This business is everything. Isabella's family is waiting for the funds. If you don't sign, I'll lose everything." His voice cracked, and for a moment, I saw the little boy. He once was the one who cried when he fell off his bike, the one I held through storms and sickness. But that boy was gone. In his place stood a man who saw his mother as a means to an end. "Mateo," I said softly, "you didn't lose everything because I won't sign. You lost everything when you forgot who you were." He tried again. "Mom, please, I'll make it right. I'll pay you back. I'll—" I raised a hand, stopping him. "Then the answer is no." The words were quiet, but they carried the weight of a lifetime. Mateo stared at me, stunned, as if he hadn't heard me correctly. "What?" I said. "No, I won't sign. I won't enable your deceit. I won't sacrifice my integrity, not even for you." For a moment, no one moved. Then Mateo's expression hardened. "You'll regret this," he whispered. I stood, meeting his gaze. "Maybe, but I'll regret it as a woman who still respects herself." And for the first time in years, I walked away without looking back. The days that followed were painfully quiet. Mateo stopped calling. The silence between us grew into something dense and suffocating. I tried to fill it with small routines, watering the plants, baking bread, ironing my blouses. But nothing could drown the echo of his last words. "You'll regret this." 3 weeks later, a former colleague from the law firm, Julia, called. Her voice was hesitant. "Valentina, I thought you should know. There's been an incident at your son's company." My heart sank. "What kind of incident?" "They're saying funds went missing, company money. I don't know the details, but his name came up in the report. I'm so sorry." When I hung up, I sat still for a long time, staring at the wall. The clock ticked softly behind me, marking each second of disbelief. I had feared this might happen, but some part of me had still hoped that Mateo would pull himself back from the edge. 2 days later, he appeared at my door. He looked nothing like the confident man who had walked into the bank weeks before. His suit was wrinkled, his eyes bloodshot, his face unshaven. The arrogance had vanished, replaced by something raw and desperate. "Mom, he said hoarsely, standing in the doorway. I lost everything. Isabella's gone. Her family wants nothing to do with me. I was fired. They think I stole money, but I didn't. I swear. I borrowed from the wrong account. I was going to pay it back. I looked at him for a long time, trying to recognize the boy I once loved so fiercely. And you came here because you want me to fix it, I said quietly. He shook his head at first, then broke down, collapsing into the chair. I don't know what to do anymore. I can't even afford rent. Please, Mom, I need help. Please. My heart clenched. Every instinct screamed to comfort him, to protect him like I used to when life was cruel. But another voice inside whispered, if you rescue him now, he'll never learn what it means to stand. I knelt beside him and took his trembling hands in mine. Matteo, you can stay here, I said softly. But there are conditions. I can. He looked up, confused. You'll get a job, any honest work, no matter how small. You'll pay back what you owe, step by step. You'll see a counselor. And you'll treat this home, and me, with respect. He stared at me, stunned. You're serious? I nodded. Completely. Completely. And for the first time in a long while, he didn't argue. He just whispered, okay, Mom. That night, I cried quietly in my room, not out of sadness, but out of something else. It was grief, yes, but also the fragile beginning of hope. The next morning, Matteo left early to look for work. I watched from the window as he walked down the street in an old jacket. His head slightly bowed, his once perfect shoes scuffed. It hurt to see him like that. But there was something necessary about it, a kind of cleansing only humility can bring. Days turned into weeks. He found a job stocking shelves at a supermarket nearby. The pay was barely enough to cover groceries, but he didn't complain. Every evening he returned home exhausted, hands rough, shoulders heavy, but quieter, more thoughtful. Sometimes I heard him humming to himself in the kitchen as he reheated leftovers. It was strange to witness my son learning what dignity meant, one shift at a time. Meanwhile, my own life was quietly changing. The bank manager, Mr. Mendez, called one day to thank me for how I had handled the forgery. Mrs. Castillo, he said, we've been developing a small program on financial literacy for women, how to protect their savings, their signatures, their independence. Would you be interested in helping us? At first, I laughed softly. Me? I'm just a retired secretary, he replied. You're exactly who we need. Someone who understands what it means to build trust from nothing. I hesitated but said yes. And so, twice a week, I began teaching at the community center a handful of women, my age and younger, each with their own stories of loss, divorce, or betrayal. I showed them how to read contracts, how to set financial boundaries, how to say no when pressured. Every time I saw one of them smile in relief, I felt my own strength returning. One evening, Matteo came home to find me preparing slides for the next class. You're teaching people about money now? He asked, curious. I smiled. Not about money, Matteo. About value. He looked puzzled, but I saw something flicker in his eyes, a kind of respect that had been gone for years. Later, he left an envelope on the kitchen table with his first repayment, $200. It was small, but it was honest. I didn't touch it for days, just kept it there as a symbol. Slowly, the house began to breathe again. Matteo still carried guilt like a shadow, but he no longer ran from it. I could see him trying helping with dinner, fixing the leaky faucet, even laughing softly when we watched old movies. And one night, when he quietly said, "Thank you for not giving up on me," I realized something profound. I hadn't just saved my son, I had saved myself. Please. It was a quiet Sunday afternoon when the past came knocking again. I was folding laundry in the living room, sunlight spilling across the floor, when I heard the soft knock at the door. Mateo was out working a double shift, and I assumed it was a neighbor. But when I opened the door, I froze. Standing there was Isabella. She looked nothing like the woman I had seen at that glittering engagement dinner months ago. Her hair, once perfectly styled, hung loosely around her shoulders. The expensive jewelry was gone, her clothes plain. Her eyes, those cold, confident eyes, were swollen from crying. "Mrs. Castillo," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Please, don't close the door. There's 8. I didn't. I couldn't." I stepped aside, motioning for her to come in. She walked slowly, clutching her purse as though it were her last possession. I poured her a glass of water, and for a while, neither of us spoke. Finally, she said, "Everything fell apart. My father's company was caught in a fraud investigation. We lost the house, the cars, everything. My parents left for Spain. I'm alone." I listened in silence, my fingers tracing the rim of my cup. She looked up at me, her voice cracking. "I came because I wanted to say, I'm sorry for the way I treated you, for letting Mateo believe that money could replace respect. I don't expect forgiveness. I just needed to say it. I wanted to say, for a long time, I said nothing. I could have reminded her of the humiliation she caused me. I could have told her how her arrogance had fueled my son's downfall. But instead, I saw a reflection of my younger self, broken, stripped of illusions, searching for something solid to hold on to. "You've lost a lot," I said quietly. "But maybe that's what it takes to understand what matters." She nodded, tears streaming down her face. "Do you think Mateo will ever speak to me again?" I looked toward the window, where the late sun painted everything gold. "That's not for me to answer," I said gently. "But if you truly want to start over, start with yourself. Learn to live honestly." When she left, the air in the house felt different, lighter, somehow. That night, Mateo came home tired, but calm. As he sat at the table eating the soup I'd made, I looked at him and realized something had changed. The anger was gone. In its place was quiet strength, the kind that only comes after losing everything and surviving. Time, I learned, is the only honest healer. Months passed, and the chaos that once defined our lives began to settle into something steady, even peaceful. Mateo continued working at the supermarket, though he soon earned a promotion to assistant manager. It wasn't glamour, but it was stability. And for the first time, he seemed proud of work that didn't come with a title or applause. Every morning before leaving, he would say, "See you tonight, Mom," and kiss my cheek. It was such a small gesture, but after years of distance, it meant the world to me. One evening, as I was finishing up a class at the community center, I noticed someone waiting by the door. It was Isabella. She looked healthier now, her posture straighter, her eyes clearer. She approached me shyly, holding a folder. "I found a job," she said, "as an assistant in a local office. It's not much, but I'm learning again." I smiled. That's how everyone starts, by learning again. It is not as did not. She hesitated before continuing. I also started volunteering here, teaching young women about budgeting. Your program inspired me. For a brief moment, emotion caught in my throat. The same woman who once judged me for my simplicity was now walking the same path toward humility and growth. A week later, Matteo came home early. He stood awkwardly in the living room, rubbing his hands together. "Mom," he said, "I've been talking to Isabella again." I looked up slowly, studying his face. It wasn't the arrogance of the old Matteo I saw there, it was sincerity, and something gentler. "She's different," he added. "So am I. We both made mistakes. But maybe we can rebuild, not the way we planned before, but something honest this time." I didn't respond immediately. I thought about all the tears, the betrayal, the long nights of silence that had brought us here. "If you choose to rebuild," I said finally, "make sure the foundation is truth. Don't repeat what destroyed you." "And he will win my and for his crease of in the plier." He nodded. "I won't." Later that night, I heard Matteo talking to Isabella on the phone. His voice was calm, almost tender. He didn't talk about money or plans, just about cooking dinner together someday, or visiting the park where they used to walk. It wasn't love reborn in grandeur. It was love humbled, learning to breathe again. As I listened from the hallway, I realized something profound. Forgiveness wasn't about erasing pain. It was about freeing yourself from its weight. And in that quiet house, I finally felt light again. 2 years have passed since that night at the restaurant when my son called me ridiculous. The wound has long healed, but the scar remains a quiet reminder of everything I had to lose to finally gain myself back. Matteo still lives with me, though not out of necessity anymore. He's saving for his own apartment, paying bills on time, living with discipline and purpose. He no longer hides behind arrogance or ambition. Instead, he faces life as it is: simple, demanding, real. Sometimes, when I see him helping a customer at the store or repairing something around the house, I see glimpses of the boy he once was, the one who believed in kindness, not status. Isabella visits often. She and Matteo are rebuilding their relationship slowly, carefully, without the illusions that once blinded them. She has learned humility, gratitude, and the peace that comes from honest work. One evening, she helped me serve dinner and said quietly, "Mrs. Castillo, I finally understand what true wealth is." I smiled. "Yes," I replied. "It's not what you hold in your hands. It's what you carry in your heart." As for me, I've discovered a new calling. My classes at the bank have grown. Dozens of women, young, old, divorced, widowed, come to learn not only about money, but about boundaries, courage, and self-worth. They share their stories, and I see myself in them. Women who gave everything and forgot themselves in the process. Sometimes, at the end of each class, I tell them the same thing my mother once wrote to me. To love is to give, yes, but it is also to say no when necessary. Because a woman who never says no slowly disappears. When I stand before those women, I no longer feel like the secretary who spent her life behind someone else's desk. I feel like a woman who has reclaimed her voice. I am 65 years old, and for the first time, I live for myself, not out of selfishness, but out of balance. If my story teaches anything, let it be this: love without limits is not love. It is surrender. True love protects, not just others, but yourself. The day I said no to my son, I thought I was losing him. But what I truly lost were my chains. And in their place, I found something far more precious, my dignity.